That's fine.
Okay, I'm gonna do the roll call this meeting to order, planning commission meeting, Tuesday, May 27th, 2025. Dale Livingston is here, Melissa,
Here.
Mike,
Here.
Elizabeth,
Here.
Justine is not right now, and Joe Tower is not. Okay, public comment?
Public.
No public, okay. Adoption of minutes. Joe sent the minutes along with the packet, the agenda. I'm presuming everybody read them.
I read them, so I can do the, or do we want to talk about them first before we?
The minutes?
If you
If
get
there's anything you
To
want,
me, they all sounded good to me, or not.
just make a motion to adopt them.
Okay, fine, I'm making that motion.
Okay, we got a motion to adopt the minutes from the April 28th meeting.
I'll second.
Mike second. Any further comments, conversation? All in favor of adopting the minutes, please signify by saying aye. Motion passes.
You know what, my birthday was yesterday.
Happy birthday.
Yes, ma'am.
Shouldn't that be on the thing?
Should be.
It's been changed to 6 o'clock for the last, I don't know, 6 months, 5 months? Yes, we've been meeting at 6 o'clock. And we're meeting at 6 o'clock through June. If you read your minutes, you know, you might be,
Boy.
Okay, Brandy just walked through the door, so,
Randy, did you get stuck in that?
but
Yes, evidently there's an accident. It was awful.
I was thinking, I didn't think I heard your
I didn't
cell
know.
number. I was
You
gonna
said you were
like
in an accident?
guide you
Yeah, there's an
through all
accident on
that.
79. Yeah, the only person's cell number I have is Joe, and he's
Yeah.
over here. So I emailed everyone, so you have an email from me.
I was gonna text Joe and see.
I was scurrying through all the back roads I got off 79 and coordinated.
Wait, guys, hold on.
That's how
There's
it
an
took me
accident on
off.
79.
It took me off. So
Brady's gonna be a few minutes late.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Mhm.
It said there's an accident on 79.
Brandy's gonna be here.
I
Yeah,
thought
it's
about
me.
you, and I'm like, oh
for
boy,
Brandy.
I hope you have good GPS.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So wait, Justine on her way?
Justine, yeah, she said she'd be here in 5 minutes.
It's close.
Yeah, she's like, did you guys change the meeting time on me?
Yes, we did, months ago.
Okay, now, don't be nasty, because I did the same thing last month, and I felt like such a complete idiot because everybody made me feel like.
Well,
I got this stuff before.
I had coffee with Justine the other day, and I said, I'll see you at 6.
Oh, did you? Oh,
Yeah,
well.
PC meeting, and she's like, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
I have complete sympathy for anybody who
Like
forgets
she's not
anything
that
ever.
far away.
Complete sympathy.
She lives in like the lower part of Upper Bridgeville.
Yes, she's like a lower.
Lower.
Okay, I'm gonna keep rolling here. I'll give Brandy a minute or two to get warmed up here, get caught up on stuff. The Baldwin Street Pollinator Garden Project. Do we have an update, Melissa? How many people do we have?
Well, we had, I would say 30, 35 range.
All right, okay,
We had a great turnout.
okay.
How many people?
I'd say 30, between 30 and 40.
Wow.
We had a big turnout. And there were what, 4 or 5 Girl Scouts there? You know, so several children. So we got all that planted, and then last Friday, we were back at Baldwin Street planting with the CB Middle School. Joe stopped down, and I'm pretty sure Public
We had
Works.
two times you planted?
Yeah, they bought about 80 more plants for that garden. So we planted those on Friday morning. And Joe, I think one day this week, Public Works is going up to the school to pick up the art that's going to be
glass panels, and it was.
Well, there's a sculpture from, I think, the sculpture show, I'm not sure, but I think that's what that is, with, on a post,
Yeah,
and the intersection of,
yeah, these are panels that are,
Yeah, I don't know.
okay.
I don't know.
And when is this gonna happen, or did it happen?
I think they're picking them up this week because school's out
Okay.
soon. And then we'll have to decide where we're going to place those, and they will have QR codes on them that will link you to poetry that other students wrote, and history articles about Bridgeville that other students worked on.
Very cool.
So they really,
How did that evolve? Somebody raised their hand to you, or you asked, or?
no, I think that the school had gotten included in a grant, and I don't have my notes, so I need to know what it's called, but it was something for the Appalachia region. And what the heck is it called? I'm not gonna remember it. Enduring Communities, I forget. Anyway, so the school had gotten a grant, and I think that they must have seen the articles. I mean, we publicized this garden pretty heavily. I think they saw the articles and kind of jumped in, but I know that the mayor had been working with them on the art. Like, we knew about the art from the whole time.
Right.
The plants came as a surprise. But yeah, so that bed that we mapped out on Baldwin is now full.
Cool.
We have maybe a dozen plants that weren't mature enough yet to plant, that we can plant on June 7th.
okay.
And then I think, Justine and I just need to get an email out to the volunteer group to let them know what we would do on June 7th. And, yeah, then we can start figuring out more stuff to do down there.
Okay.
Nice
Did
project.
I stall them? Did I stall them? Make you go.
No, you know.
Okay, anything else?
I'm
Okay,
trying to kill time until Justine gets here. I don't know, one of Justine's neighbors volunteered, I guess he's got some elderberry bushes, so he offered up 2 from his yard, so we can kind of make a nice little grove in the back of that property with elderberry bushes. And, the school also bought 12 by 12 walking papers, and those are on the site. They brought those on Friday when they came down there.
Like, here's information, you can walk around and look at.
No, they're actual stepping
stepping
stones.
stones.
So we
I
need,
thought you said walking papers.
no, walking
Walking
papers.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha.
That we can place in the garden to help keep people from trampling the plants. So that's something we can do on June 7th. And then the Girl Scouts were looking for another activity, so we're thinking that perhaps we'll offer to the children of the community, including the Girl Scouts, they can maybe come down and paint those stones and make them pretty. So that would be a fun project, I think, for the kids. And, I don't know,
Okay.
I'd like to have the Public Works bring some wood chips down there, we could start killing some of that other grass.
Cool.
Great project.
Good job, thank you.
It's a good project.
The greenhouse.
Brandy, would you like to enlighten us?
Sure.
I'm gonna talk to you after this.
Okay.
So I believe Joe forwarded you the draft amendment. Now, this doesn't have all the legal language that will need to go in as an amendment, but that can be added later. So what I did is just compile everything from what we've been talking about into different sections of the amendment. So the first section are the boundaries of the district from what we had landed on last. The next section 2 is permitted uses. So these are uses permitted by right and conditional use, as we have discussed and in length at our last meeting. Section 3 is, one thing on the permitted use table that I sent in a subsequent email is that there will be accessory uses that are identified in the ordinance currently. One thing we have to have in every district that has residential uses, you have to allow no impact home-based business, so that'll be added to the table. as an accessory use, and that's the law, you have to have that in every district that has residential. Section 3 are adding the definitions for brew pub, business incubator, and pharmacy, as we've discussed, because we added those to the use table.
I have a question on that one. For the brew pub, there's the language in there does not include the production of any other alcoholic beverages.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
Is there a reason why we're excluding like a distillery?
Because in the primary land use, it says brew pub, micro distillery /
Okay,
winery.
I'll take that. That was my mistake, sorry. I pulled one just for brew pub.
And it could be called, could be a brew pub /
Slash just
Well,
micro
it also
distillery.
says primary in the retail sale of prepared food. A lot of breweries don't have food, but they have food trucks.
Yeah. I'll get a better definition.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the way it's currently written, would it prohibit food trucks?
No.
Okay.
That's
And
okay.
would it also prohibit if you don't sell food, you don't have a brewery?
No, but I'll take out engage primarily, that'll fix that.
Okay.
Yeah. And food trucks can go wherever.
Yeah.
But I will include the distiller, I'll update that for brew pub slash.
Maybe there were food trucks on 79.
That's what- And then the back way that, sorry, an aside, but the back way that it took me on these like little towns in Collier Township, and somebody was evidently moving, they had 2 huge moving trucks, and they were stuck on this little road, like that's super steep and windy, so I had to wait for them to get that truck unstuck. But anyway, it was quite an adventure.
Yeah.
Adventure.
It was an adventure today.
Yeah, and then updated retail stores, as we discussed, to not include vape shops. So something the borough will want to look at then as a subsequent amendment outside of this one, or maybe as part of this one, that's not dealing with the downtown district, but you'll want to add vape shops to your use and permit them somewhere, whether that's industrial or whatever. But if we're specifically excluding them from this definition, then you'll want to allow them somewhere. And currently you don't have them in your use table anywhere. So that's something that we'll talk to the attorney about.
So they could kind of be in the mixed use or,
Wherever you want to put it, industrial, mixed use.
okay.
I'll talk to Joe about that.
A question in this space too. I was looking at the old, like the old definition list, and so I just had a question, like, would pawn shops be considered retail?
Yeah.
So we're going with pawn shops, we don't like vape shops.
We can add whatever you want to
You-
this. That
you
was the only
consider-
thing we discussed
I mean,
previously.
a consignment shop.
Are you,
Where's the line between a pawn shop and axe antique?
Consignment shop.
Right?
A consignment shop.
Yeah, that's the word.
And
I'm just trying to think.
is there also in here, besides defining what the stuff is it also defining where it is? Like it's okay to be down the hill but not on the main drag?
You can put it in a district, you can't put it on a specific street or.
Okay,
You
well
So,
then I
put it
have,
by
so we're
district.
talking about the business district and we're talking
districts.
about mixed use.
No,
okay, so, but
don't,
I'm
Yeah,
just
stuck on the, on
I
the
know.
playing
vape shop
devil's advocate.
problem.
Yeah.
What are we, how are we writing this?
You're not allowing it in this district,
Okay.
which is your main street,
Okay.
but you have to allow it somewhere.
So it could
You
be,
have to.
It could be on the Guam, well, anywhere in the red territory, right?
Except for, if you allow it in mixed use. If you put it in industrial, then that's limiting it further.
Right.
So that's a decision you'll have to make outside of this. So
So
I don't wanna get,
everybody needs to go visit.
go and visit
You all
what?
need to go visit
Visit
Go
what?
visit what?
the vape shops when you try to decide where it gets stuck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've
So
been there.
you want to limit them from more than Washington Avenue?
Personally, yes.
Okay, well, that's not gonna happen.
Fine, but just go check it out. Just,
The one thing
and
you have to-
Have you
I
been-
pulled up a whole bunch
One-
of stuff about how addictive this stuff is
it's legal.
Stuff.
It's legal.
Fine.
You have to allow it somewhere, and you can't make it so,
We can,
just 1 second, you can't make it so restrictive that it couldn't go anywhere.
Right, right.
So those are the two things to keep in mind. Right now, we're keeping it out of the central business district as per this amendment. The borough will need to decide where to put it outside of this process.
and then what does that happen to the existing businesses?
They can stay, their grandfathered in. That's a law.
And their
You cannot ask them to, you cannot make them.
so whenever, let's just say one of those day shops vacant, move out for 12 months.
Then it cannot be a vape shop again.
But if somebody
After-
moves it in there at a month 11,
It's
then
fine.
it can be a vape shop. It's after that 12th month.
Correct.
Okay.
And
And
if they are actively trying to sell it as a vape shop and it goes outside of that 12 months, there's leniency there too. If abandonment is when you walk away from it, you're not trying to sell it, you're not trying to use it, you're just abandoning it.
Who decides the leniency then?
So if someone would challenge you, the board can decide.
Okay.
So they would have to provide proof that they were actively marketing it
Okay.
for sale.
All right.
He sold it.
Yeah.
So the burden would be on the property owner.
Okay.
I know.
Okay, so those are the definitions. Dimensional requirements, based on our discussion last month, I did put a maximum building height in there of 55 feet. I know there was some discussion on that. So you can let me know if that needs to change.
55 feet is what, 3
4
stories?
stories.
4 stories? Okay.
And then all the other dimensional requirements in your mixed-use district are appropriate for downtown, as we've talked about. You don't have setbacks. You allow buildings up to the sidewalk. You allow them to be built right next to each other to follow the character of the district. So no other changes were made to dimensional requirements other than building height, which is currently 45. I raised it to 55.
An extra floor.
You okay with that, Mike?
It also removes,
Okay with
there
that.
is the conditional use, or there is the condition in
On
your
the other side.
existing mixed-use district that allows it to go up to 120 feet. That is not in the downtown district. So it's just 55 feet is the maximum building height currently, as this draft is written. So we talked about that. We talked about removing it.
Right.
So I did. It's still in your mixed-use district, so they can still build
Okay.
tall buildings within your
Yeah.
mixed-use district. In the downtown district, as this is currently written, maximum building height is 55 feet, and that's that, unless they would want to apply for a variance. That would go to the zoning
That's fair.
commission.
So, well, let me ask a question. I mean, kind of thinking about, not now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now, the potential for having shorter buildings along the main street
Right.
and potentially taller buildings behind. Does that, I'm just trying to envision things and just trying to think about things in the future. I mean, does that make sense to do something like that? No?
No, because I think your character is misplaced then. All right, you're moving from, in my opinion, a character that is small town
Mm-hmm.
into, if you put Bridgeville Towers in back of that, you're destroying the whole, in my opinion, the atmosphere. I
So-
mean,
Keep in mind that this project here that we're currently working on is only for the downtown district.
correct,
If you want to amend further to take that out of mixed use as well, that's a separate problem.
correct, right.
So just so everyone's clear,
But he's
this
saying-
is for the downtown.
He's saying if you put 10 stories a block behind,
Right, that, to change that, you have to do that separately.
Well, and I'm questioning, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, I guess. I'm just questioning whether we want that. I mean, do we want to leave the building height the same as potentially what's in the mixed-use district?
What's the mixed use district right now?
It's 45 feet, and then you can go up to, I believe it's 120 if you meet certain conditions. And I don't
Like
know the
Bridgeville
ordinance.
Towers
right,
or Granby
Yeah.
Towers.
Yes,
I don't and if somebody wants to come in and put a 5-story building, you know, it's not like if they're gonna put a 5-story building, it's a significant building. It's not like you're gonna come in to say, start building it. You know, if they wanna do a 5-story, it's gonna be a big project anyway. So it wouldn't be a big deal to get hey, we wanna add a 5-story, go to zoning, get a variance and do it.
Correct. It would add another step in cost to their,
Right.
but,
It'd be,
but like you said, it's gonna be minimal.
yeah,
just-
compared to the project.
Just an aside, in the last community that I lived in, there was a row of condos that were supposed to be 4 feet,
4 stories.
4 stories.
Were they
The
for like college?
developer,
4 feet were
the developer built 5 stories. And we're looking at it at the community going, how did that happen? And they just went ahead and did it. I mean, the development sued them,
Right.
all right, and it never got resolved because it was already built.
Yeah, that's happened here in town.
People can do
Pe-
that
people
with
will
whatever
stop.
regulations, they can do it and ask for forgiveness later.
Right.
That's usually-
That's why when you're having a fairly large development, as a borough, you want to be keeping track of what's going on and talking to the people. If you see, you know,
Yeah.
buildings are getting higher than what they're supposed to, before they're finished, you need to talk to that developer, have your attorney reach out to him or her. Section 5, parking. As we discussed previously, the downtown district will not require off-street parking. Signage, again, as we talked about last month, signs shall be permitted as indicated in chapter 27, section 1205, which is your current zoning ordinance, with the following change for the downtown district. The maximum height of the top of a pole sign shall be 10 feet. I believe it's 20 feet in mixed use. We talked about lowering that. And then section 1202.1 shall be amended to remove the following. This was based on the discussion with Joe. Allowing more than one sign on a building in the downtown district. Wall sign. Currently, your ordinance, if you put up a wall sign, you can't have a projecting sign too, or you can't have 2 wall signs. Joe thought that was overly restrictive. We talked about it, so I removed that. 1 overhanging sign shall be permitted for each building. An overhanging sign shall not be authorized as a business identification sign in place of a wall sign, so they can have both. So that bullet point will be removed from the downtown, so they can have, but because currently you don't allow it. This is how it's currently written, that bullet point.
I have a question. And is there any potential, there's nothing in here that discusses what kind of lighting should be outside on the buildings, is that correct?
Correct, we have some design guidelines in section 8, but it does not dictate lighting.
Okay.
That is getting a little bit in a murky area legally.
So let's just say I would like to have dark sky lights,
Dark sky compliant.
dark sky compliant. I mean,
I would talk that over with your solicitor,
okay,
yeah.
all right,
Because that could be added into the design guidelines.
okay. And I know it's not doing anything, you know, it's not doing,
Yeah.
it still provides
Pennsylvania is a
light.
bit restrictive on how much you can force someone to do with their
Okay.
building and materials.
Okay.
And that kind of
Okay.
thing, unless you're in an historic district, which you are not, an official historic district
Okay.
designated by the state or the federal government. So you could have that conversation with your solicitor, and then if we want to add in something about lighting,
I mean, because it's not like we're gonna be building tomorrow.
correct,
Okay.
Mike?
You just brought something up and it made me think of something. You said historic district. If you go on Route 19 through Mount Lebanon, you know, like before you, like if you're going from Upper St. Clair coming into Mount Lebanon on Route 19, on the right, they have all these little neighborhoods, they all call them historic districts. So what, I mean, I don't know how historic they are. I mean, I don't think Abraham Lincoln lived there or anything like that. districts, like whether it's, I'm just, you know, like our brick streets, if somebody wants to say, hey, we want to keep our brick streets historic and so they stay the way. I mean, is that something you apply for or?
Yeah, you would apply, the state has a designation and the federal government has a designation, so they each have a process that you would go through. There's a form you have to fill out, it's fairly lengthy, and then it takes time to go through the process. It would probably take at least a year, if not two.
But is that something, I mean, I'm not saying I want to go, let's do that, you know, but is that something that's like a way to preserve your Main Street?
Yes, but you need to be careful because
I know.
With that.
And I don't want to do it,
A
I'm
lot
just
of
curious.
restrictions
Yeah.
that it's
Yeah.
almost be careful what you wish for.
Exactly, I don't want to do it, I was just curious, because I
Yes.
see that in
It's a
towns,
tool to
and
use.
it's like, hey, this is the historic district,
Correct.
you know,
That is, you can get very specific and even down to paint color, what color
Yeah.
people are allowed to paint their building.
Yeah,
So that property owners usually do not like.
you know, we don't want to do that.
I was,
No.
And
I'm just
you would have to
curious.
form a historic review commission that would put a lot of
Yeah.
stuff on the borough in terms of enforcement. So that is something that I wouldn't necessarily
No,
recommend.
no.
So,
We don't want to do that.
Now, the Dairy Delight's a different story.
That's the historic, it should be archived.
you wanna list that on the historic register? You can do it for specific buildings. You don't have to do a whole district, so you can just nominate Dairy Delight
That'd be cool.
and,
That'd be absolutely.
and certain menu items need to remain.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Sorry.
very specific.
Couldn't help it. I thought about that while the Ritz Hotel is still open.
Section 7 on page 4, you have additional criteria for specific uses in your current ordinance. For some of the items that we added as conditional uses, I put in a few items and we can keep them, remove them, add to them. Catering services, including rental hall, we talked about that it must be open to the public. Another one that I see often for rental hours of operation, 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Those can be extended, but you don't want like parties going on all through the night. The reason to have that, it can be till midnight if you want. That's just kind of a standard that I often see.
Is there a minimum and maximum seat?
You can put that in if you want. I did not put that here, but you can. You'll see for commercial recreation, I did put a maximum size of 5,000 square feet because your downtown has smaller. You don't want a huge bowling alley or something going in. We talked about that too. I also put hours of operations there. And then for independent living, again, to limit the size, I have seen people put a cap on the number of residents, so 10 is for a smaller size.
So question, do we want to assign square footage for the size of a hall, a rental hall?
I don't think so. Why?
No, I'm just saying, here's my thought, okay? Number one, people in Bridgeville are still very attuned to going, after a funeral, to going to lunch somewhere,
Of course.
okay? So now I
Free
figure,
lunches.
So where do you go?
I'm thinking, so
Churches
do we
don't do it in the
want,
basement.
do we want a size that like, let's say, not Bergs, well, Bergs would do.
Or, I mean,
Is that too big?
it used to be Tambourines. I mean, you used to have Tambourines where you go there
Correct,
and it was
right,
big enough to hold 200 people if you needed.
okay,
You have a small wedding there.
right,
Or Norwood Party House. We don't have anything that can do a small wedding,
right.
you know?
So, how many square feet do you need for 100, 200 people?
200 people? See, we were just at a wedding. We went to
It's in the old,
Nino's wedding Saturday. It was 150 people, and that wasn't that big. 200 people, you need a gymnasium,
yeah,
basically. Basketball court, whatever. basketball.
150 then. Let's see what we can do for 150. Because I think that it fills a need for something that's not happening right now.
Like I said, we had more party house. I mean, Absolutely, that was a staple for
Right,
years.
my brother got there,
Yeah.
so. And it has to have, the catering place obviously has to have a kitchen.
That was pretty good
Right.
size. You couldn't do 200 there.
Who was the place up on,
So this is saying about 4,000 to 5,000 square feet
For
to hold, to comfortably accommodate 200 people.
4,000 to 5,000 square feet, so you're talking.
So 50 by 100.
I mean, we're allowing a maximum of 5,000 square feet for commercial
Right,
recreation.
so that's a similar,
So,
it kind of makes sense
Mhm.
if you want to add it for the rental hall as well, so you don't get
I
someone.
mean, the fire hall holds about 200. And
that's
Yeah, how big it is.
we just had our Rotary trivia night, we had 200 there, and it was packed,
that's pretty, that's maybe too big.
yeah, I'm just saying, if you wanna look at an idea of what it looks
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
we had 200 there at the fire hall, and you've all been there. You know,
pretty big.
you're pushing it for
Okay.
200.
Can we think about size then? Or get back, are we,
Yeah. Did you want to do 5,000 or you still want to think about it? You don't think that's big enough
I think that's too big.
or too big?
What, the fire hall?
5,000 square feet.
5,000 square feet.
How big is the hall in the fire hall?
I don't know, what do you think, measure feet wise? Think it's,
We had, my daughter's wedding was there, was 200 people there,
how many?
200.
Yeah, I mean, and that's pretty much capacity, right?
Yeah, and you still had a dance floor. but-
Yeah.
So for seating purpose, I was at a wedding, Castle Shands Fire Department on Saturday, and it's under the fire department, ain't the
Yeah.
the back places and that. And they had a sign there, maximum 250, and,
Yeah, but do we know the size of any of these buildings, square
That's
footage?
what I'm wondering how big.
All right, well, let's,
I'm amazed at this entire discussion. I'm in a room with 8 people, none of whom have ever operated a catering facility.
Pat, do you have something positive?
I have something positive because I'm going to get to it, okay? Why would you try and impose? I mean, the answer, my positive is allow for catering facilities. You do not have to specify a minimum or a maximum square footage.
It's
Go forth,
to,
keep going.
the reason you do it is to protect the character of a downtown so that you don't have, in a small downtown, a huge facility with thousands of cars. Those are the reasons you limit it.
Okay.
So that
And
answers
remain-
your question.
and at the same time, remain
Because there's literally
for,
catering halls out there that have 3 weddings going on at the same time.
Yes, there's Belisara down the street.
Right.
That's
That
not
has-
what I'm talking about though.
If
Yes.
you
Belisara would be great.
don't limit it, someone could come in,
Right.
buy a bunch of properties, tear them down, and put in a huge hall.
Yeah.
So the reason you limit it is so that things like that don't happen in your historic, walkable downtown. Now, so that's just an answer to your question, and
And-
that's why.
And that's my piece coming back to you and saying, why wouldn't you want that kind of development? But I understand,
You can't provide
philosophically,
parking.
let me just keep my mouth because, keep going.
Okay.
So I'll talk to Joe, see how big the fire hall is, just to get an idea, come back with a number.
Well, do we want to limit it?
Or yeah, do you want me
we
to do
want
that?
to limit,
Do you want to limit
in my
the size?
opinion, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Something smaller than the chart here.
Yeah, yeah.
whatchamacallit, the Norwood Party House was probably perfect. You don't want anything different than that.
Exactly.
And you had,
I
you
mean,
had
it's
all the parking.
personal. I mean, you're not in, anyway,
Yeah, but I'm saying you had parking outside to accommodate
but,
that party house, okay? Which most of the time was 150 people, is what I can remember. So, I mean, that's what you want. You don't wanna go much bigger than that. You don't wanna go as big as a fire hall because
right,
Right.
now you gotta tear a block down to put it in.
Okay.
Okay. Like I said, the commercial recreation, we do have a maximum size there, hours of operation. Independent living also limits by the number of residents. Usually less than 10 residents
says that you can accommodate 300 people.
Yeah, but we need to know how big it is. So that
I know,
we
I'm
can-
looking for the square feet,
Yeah,
but that's what
it's
they
probably-
say.
yeah,
It's
It's probably
big.
not in there, we'll probably have to ask Joe or the fire
So
department
you're
how big
talking
it is,
20,
so that they then have an idea,
26,
because they don't want to move.
3 by 3.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
49.
okay.
Okay.
Then section 8 are the design guidelines that these are pretty much what we've already looked at. I didn't really change these at all. So that's the last section there.
I do have a question. When you do a live-work situation, is the person that lives on the second floor typically the owner of the retail business underneath it?
Sometimes, but not always, and I would,
And there's no because I'm like thinking, okay, well, you know,
you don't have the
You
right
would.
to tell.
right, okay,
Yeah.
all right, that's fine.
But a lot of times, yeah, a person will live upstairs and operate a business downstairs, but you can't say that they have to.
Okay, okay.
The fire hall room, the charger's room,
Uh-huh.
is roughly 40 feet by 80 feet. If you
Okay,
count
so-
ceiling tiles.
so that's less than
Or
5,000.
3 by 3 ceiling tiles, which I think they are. It's 39 feet.
So you're
It's double
looking-
the size. And that's,
3,200 feet square.
yeah, 3,200 square
So
feet.
you
That's
want
just
to
the
go
room.
smaller than
No,
that?
no, 5,000, that gives you room, because you're gonna have a kitchen, right? You're gonna
Correct.
have all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So, yeah, that's,
yeah,
I think 5,000, that's probably pretty good,
okay.
you know? That gives you enough 3,000 square feet for,
I think we'd go the Norwood measure.
yeah, I bet you'll be close. I bet you'll be pretty darn close to that.
Okay, all right.
So again, I didn't make any changes for the design guidelines, these are what we've looked at in the past. Say it again? Did you want to look at these? These are what we've discussed before, I just put them all in one document. And this is the last one. Is this what came out of that conversation with the, it helped to inform it, yeah. There were some extra things too that we discussed that wasn't discussed that night. Mhm.
So you're familiar with Zillion?
It's not, yeah, somewhat, I'll make it there a few times.
But, I mean, when you do have the ability to go from the parking lot in that particular town, in between buildings.
That's a parking lot, this is off-street parking provided by the facility.
Okay, so let's just say, I mean, are we expecting that all these storefronts or all these retail centers will be in one particular block of 12 storefronts? Or are there gonna be like maybe 4 storefronts and a little egress so that you can get from the back?
I mean, I'm not expecting your current situation to change much at all.
Okay,
The only thing that I think has the potential to change, and that's gonna depend on a lot of things, including the flood project, which is,
yeah,
I understand, not going forward right now.
right.
Would be that northern end site that we talked about in the comp plan. I'm not expecting, I mean, I'm not a fortune teller, but
Right.
I can't see anytime soon people tearing down a bunch of buildings and building something new. It's gonna be redevelopment of your existing buildings and the parking lots that you already have. That's my guess, if you're asking what I think. How now?
It's gonna depend on, you know,
We aren't requiring off-street
developers.
parking. We aren't requiring off-street parking, so I'm gonna guess most businesses will not provide because they don't have room to do that, so they'll just use on-street parking and the existing lots that you currently have. But if they do provide it, you wanna make sure that it is positioned correctly and not in front of the building for sure.
Okay.
wanna make sure it has safe access. So that's what that is kind of getting at.
Okay.
So, I think from our discussions, the main things that we need to change are in section 7, adding the 5,000 square feet to catering. And then for the use table, adding in those accessory uses that I forgot, that you currently have.
What was the second thing you said? I'm sorry.
Accessory use.
Accessory uses, I just listed primary uses, I forgot to include the accessory, it's from, just from your current list. Things like home-based business, you have to allow, stuff like that. So what I can do is make those changes, get it back out to everyone for one final look if you want, or we can start the process. I'll have to talk to Joe about getting the amendment process going. You'll have to have a 45, I think it's either 30 or 45 days, I can't remember, for an amendment. Comment period, similar to what we did for the comp plan, so they'll have to go to the county. For their review, I would suggest that you make it available to the public during that time frame for their review and comment. And then a public hearing will have to be scheduled where you take additional public comment. There are
Do we need to
specific.
come back to here to do this, or can we just make these changes?
No, I can just make these changes and
Okay.
we can start moving forward. I can start moving forward with
Yeah.
Joe, if you all are comfortable.
I think we need to make a recommendation to move it forward.
I would do
Yes,
that.
I mean, we do that now.
Yeah. Well, okay, we'll.
What I'm saying, now is in tonight, if we,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
You could make the recommendation that we move forward with the process as long as the changes we discussed are
Yes.
made. This, so that way it's in the record that
Mhm.
you requested, a couple of changes that I will make. And then I don't have to bring this back to you in another
Perfect.
meeting.
Any more discussion?
Any more discussion?
I'll make a motion to, based off the changes we discussed, that Brandy goes and,
Moves forward with the enactment.
moves for, yes, what she has said. Better English. Talk words less.
Okay, got a motion to move this forward with corrections that Brandy's gonna make. Anything else that I need to add in here? Okay, do I have a second?
Second, I'll second.
Okay, Betsy?
If we're gonna talk to the solicitor about the lights, is that something that can be added down the road or
Yeah.
something to be ignored? Okay.
If you want to do it now,
No,
get back
no,
to me.
I'm
No, you can amend your ordinance at any time.
Okay. Okay.
And if you make a small change like that, it's much more simple than going through this.
Okay.
Well, if we make that change down the road, we still have to do a comment period and.
You still have to do all of that, yes.
Okay.
But it's just getting the amendment prepared would be super simple.
Okay.
But you still have to do the comment period, the public hearing, yes. Anytime you amend your ordinance, that's required.
Okay.
And you wouldn't need to hire a consultant to do that.
Okay.
You could do that in-house.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'm on the 120 feet building height
Mhm.
requirement. I'm not quite sure where you settled because you left it in the mixed use to 120 feet, and in the business district, you were going back and forth, and pardon me, I'm sorry, but I just don't know where you guys settled, okay?
55.
Because you were talking about the variance process, and the way it was discussed, it sounded like the variance process was, you just go and apply for a variance.
Well,
and you get it.
there is a
We-
process, it's not that
it's-
simple.
You have to have a hardship, if I
Correct,
recall correctly.
correct,
And
yes.
it's, a rather, burdensome
Yes,
and not a clear path.
right.
So, and I feel fairly strongly that you should at least allow as a conditional use in the business district, the 120 feet, as a conditional use.
On the downtown
In the downtown area. In other words, if at the north end, in this prime piece, we have nowhere to go but up. And if you don't allow as a conditional use then you've really cut off much of what you can develop. Because the town can't go, as everyone has pointed out, there's no place for Bridgeville to go but up. And if you cut off going up in the business district, not a whole lot of other places where, it's only left in the mixed-use district, which is really sort of odd. So I was thinking you were saying that the 120-foot height was going to be kept in the business district, was the way but that's not what I'm sensing.
That's not.
Okay, and that's why I wanted to point this out. Okay, if you're going the other way, so be
I
it.
mean, it's not as if there aren't other places to build 110 feet.
Where?
BG Bus Garage. You know?
Okay, so in the mixed use off of the main street, it's sort of awkward. I mean, certainly not the piece we keep talking about development. You're basically saying, look, Pat, that north end piece where Buddy Bailing is, we want that no more than 4 stories high. That's what you're saying. And if you don't get 4 stories high, leave it vacant. Because we don't want something higher than 4 stories.
So this is how it's currently written, just so everyone's clear.
Yeah.
How it's currently written in your mixed-use district. Permitted by right, 45 feet maximum. So we did add an additional 10 feet to that. Then permitted by conditional use is 110, I'm sorry, not 120. 110 feet maximum. The application shall be subject to borough review regarding proposed building location and overall height in context of, but not limited to, topography, facade reflectivity, and overall impact of the structure's massing within the zoning district. Applicable building elevation drawings and other supportive material and other industry recognized sound planning impacts as identified by the borough shall be subject to review. The borough may require any design mitigating measures in its sound judgment to assure that the building design shall fulfill the foregoing requirements. So that, to me, is a lot of words that don't mean anything. Like, it sounds like it's just subject to the borough if you want to approve it or not. But that's how it's currently written. So we can leave that in the downtown district, or we can remove it.
So if it's 120 feet,
110.
110 feet, you still have to, you can't just go and build 110 feet.
No, it's a conditional use process, so it would need to go to a public hearing at
So
Borough
when we were
Council.
saying, hey, keep it at 55 feet, and if you want to go higher, if you go to variance, it's the same,
Well, it's not the same process,
Well,
because as Pat pointed out,
right,
a conditional use is permitted with conditions. A variance is a separate process. There are conditions that you need to prove a hardship in order,
okay.
but
so
a lot
that-
of times,
um,
zoning hearing boards don't understand that, and they approve a lot of variances that probably should not be approved. But if you follow the letter of the law, as Pat mentioned, there are 5 criteria in the MPC. You need to meet one of those criteria to prove a hardship. I don't have them memorized.
Right.
Um,
I don't
A
like the
conditional
idea that
use
if-
is permitted if you go to the public hearing and you meet all the conditions put forth by the borough, then you're approved.
and
Variance
what would
It's
those,
not.
and I'm trying to find a path forward, so if somebody wanted to come and do something that made sense, where is that, how do they get to that path? And also, if somebody just can't come and just throw a big building up, and it's too, I don't want that path, I want that path to be easy, but not too easy, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we just,
So a conditional use process is much easier than a variance.
right,
Yes.
which it should be, I guess.
Because conditional use means it is permitted, it's just permitted with conditions. So you can't just outright reject it.
And what would those conditions,
Well, I read you what they currently
Yeah.
are, which is very subjective in my mind.
right?
So
So-
that's currently what you have.
So, I mean, it comes down to like whether or not, if somebody wants to build something, like our zoning board, if somebody wants to apply for a variance, they don't, I mean, I guess they have to prove a hardship.
They do.
They're supposed to, oh, sorry, they're supposed to, but what it comes down to is whether the people on the zoning board want to give it to them or not.
But you really can't take that, you really shouldn't be planning that.
I know, that's what I'm saying, you shouldn't do it, but that's what it comes down to. And if we do it where it's conditional use, it's still gonna come down to whether a group of people that sit up here allow it or not.
Correct, because
So it's
currently
either,
as
it's
this
like,
is written, it's
what
very
group of people sit
subjective.
up here and
Yeah.
tell them?
It's very subjective and
Right.
now, a variance, I believe the public can come and comment at a
Yes.
variance hearing. Yeah, so they can come and comment at both, you have to have a public hearing for both processes. So people can come and provide comment in support or against. So that testimony should go into the decision making as well. For the conditional use, for the variance, it really is cut and dry. It should just be, do they meet these hardships or not?
So can I ask the people who've been here for a while, when they wanted to put the big building on
Doctor, that's what I was, my
was
question
was
was.
he asking for a variance or was it conditional use?
Conditional.
It was
Because
conditional
it's
use.
allowed, yeah.
But we still had a public hearing, didn't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I
And
said.
it got really ugly.
It did get ugly.
A conditional
we're-
use you have to have a public, I said you
Okay.
have to have a public hearing.
So basically what I'm saying is, there's no difference. I mean, no, I'm saying, I'm not saying there's no difference. There's no, you're still gonna have, if somebody wants to come and put a big 100-foot building, there's gonna be a lot of people with pitchforks if they don't like it.
The difference is, one is allowed, one is not allowed.
Right.
You have to have a hardship for a
Right.
variance. Conditional use, you should be allowed to do it if you meet the conditions. So one is permitted, one is not.
So the bigger burden is on variance.
Correct.
Yeah.
But you got Rite Aid that they're closing up, so if somebody wants to come in and put
A 10-story building.
a 10-story building up, and they could acquire some other property behind them and have their own parking, which, my question to you is, does the borough have to provide parking for that 10-story building?
No.
And that's where the issue came with Dr. Roy's property, was he wanted to put doctor's offices and everything, so, but the borough would have had to buy a whole row of houses next to Warner Street
Yeah.
to provide parking, which was kicking it back into our lap.
That, I don't know why that was required, because that's, you should not have to do that. The property owner needs to provide their parking. The borough should not be responsible for providing a private property owner parking.
Well, this is,
Unless there was some sort of deal made between the property.
this is right next to LaBelle Bean.
It's right next to a public
I
parking lot.
understand
so-
where it is, but, you don't, as a borough, you don't have to put in parking for some new building coming in.
I think in our ordinance, it says in that area, you have to provide parking.
The property owner, but
No,
not
the
the borough.
borough does.
Well,
you're in
I
the
would
main
suggest
business
looking
district.
at that, because that's very
Well,
unusual.
that's what I'm saying.
That's our
All
dilemma.
right, all right. We're getting a little off the track.
Yeah, but this is,
I hear you.
yeah, but this is something, this is the point where you're gonna make that decision.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you have basically three pieces of property
So,
in from end to end that could possibly end up in that particular.
but let me, not really, because we're making a new district, which does not have that requirement about the parking.
Yeah, that is true.
So,
Okay,
it's
so you guys are changing,
correct, and this is a brand-new district that we're creating with the regulations for this district, and it does not include anything about the borough providing parking. Additional parking.
okay, what happens to all the businesses that are there now that the borough is providing for?
Your parking stays the same, but you don't have to provide parking for a new business coming in. You still have your public parking lots, your on-street parking that you currently have.
I don't know about that.
The borough should not be providing
I-
the building and the parking lot.
I agree, but there's no other place for the park.
Then that property owner needs to find a way to provide parking for its tenants.
Then you're gonna lose the character of your business district.
Not if you make them put it in the back where it is not visible and you provide the safety things that we have in here for the
I
parking.
mean, like Burns doesn't have a parking lot. I mean, there's a paid parking lot there they use.
Right, I'm saying, you take Bridgeville Appliance, you take, you take any one of the businesses along there,
Because they're within 500 feet
Right.
of
Of
a
a park,
Right.
which Dr. Roy's would, if that building would have went in, it would have been within 500 feet of a parking lot.
Yes, and that's where the issue came, because
So that's probably why they didn't come here, because the borough was not gonna provide it. Pat, you have a question?
Yeah, you got into it,
Yeah,
okay?
that's probably
But
why
that
the
is
deal fell.
exactly why, amongst other reasons,
Yeah.
the deal fell through.
Right.
Because the borough was not going to provide
Right.
parking, nor was it required to
Yeah, I was
provide.
very
the-
surprised.
The two of you are, you're vehemently agreeing with what it is. But the borough's not required to
Right.
provide parking,
Right.
neither is the building owner,
Correct,
so he did not come in here.
correct.
If I might, the other problem with the variance process is it extends beyond what the elected officials in the town would want to do.
That's why you have a separate zoning hearing board,
Yeah.
that is a
And-
non,
It-
it's a
and-
separate board.
And I would point out, I can confirm this, an interested property owner, let's assume the zoning hearing board approved the variance for your 10-story building that everybody seems to want. One individual, assume they did, assume that all of you voted for it, the council voted for it, that the building owner and everyone was all happy, but one person, Joe Smith, was unhappy, didn't want it.
You can,
Joe
you
Smith
can
is
take it to court.
He's a hypothetical
Okay.
evil man. He's the only person in the town that doesn't want this 10-story building. Okay? He can go and take it to court.
You can, yes.
With a conditional use, it's much harder for Joe Smith. It's now within the planning commission to approve or disapprove, just as Dr. Roy's thing was put in. All I'm suggesting is that you keep it as a conditional use process, as opposed to an outright ban, to give the community, which is you, the option, if you want to allow it if it makes sense.
So that's on the table.
I kind of agree with Pat for some reason. I mean, I look at, we've been saying that for a long time, there's nowhere to go in this town except to go up. And it depends, like I said, if it makes sense, you know, it comes to the process, if it makes sense. I just look, we have some tall buildings in this town already. And I'm not saying somebody could also around 5 buildings that are gonna be 100 feet tall, but if somebody wanted to put something that, I don't want another Bridgeville Towers, because that's the wrong building. You go to every little town, and you go to Sharpsburg, they have the standard block,
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about, right? And I'm not saying I don't know if it's 100 stories or we make it, instead of 55, we make it 80 or 75 or something, I don't know.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is when we're talking about maximum building height, consider the 55 with the conditional use of, or conditions of being able to go higher, like as in the mixed use.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, and it's, because you still have conditional use where you still can't just come in, well, again, let's play devil's advocate. If somebody wanted to build another Bridgeville Towers, because Bridgeville Towers is not, what's it, like, is it, it's not Section 8, but is it, or, it's some sort of,
It's subsidized.
Seems-
It's essentially Section 8.
yeah.
You cannot zone that. Just don't go any further with that. You cannot. You
I mean,
can't tell them they
it has to be free and open. You can't say.
You can't tell the property owner he can't make it subsidized.
Yeah, so we don't like that. See, what do we do to,
You can't, there's nothing you can do.
There's nothing you can do.
But there is conditional uses, meaning, as you, Randy, as you went through all of the things that you've got in that word salad of subjective hearing, and you'll see, I mean, the pitchforks come out, and Dr. Roy doesn't have a building. And he was looking to do something that was not Section 8.
right, I know, he wanted to put,
If you have control of the process, at least I believe you have some.
Yeah, but it's, again, you can't control subsidized housing, right?
Correct.
Correct.
Whether it's 4 stories high or 10 stories high,
Right, it doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, at least allow yourself the option by having the conditional use of the 120 stories?
Well, it's 110 feet,
110
not
feet,
stories.
sorry. Just leave it alone.
It would be about 7 or 8 stories, not 120.
Yeah, I'll let you guys decide, I don't know.
Honestly, I think it should be ran past the attorney and Joe Cower, because he's
Yeah,
basically the
Joe's-
zoning
If
officer.
Joe's not here, I would want to hear,
Yeah.
him, before we make any final
Yeah.
decisions, I would like.
I'm
him to
sorry, I didn't mean.
Understand?
No,
No,
I-
this
I
is
like-
why we have a public process.
Right.
Because people have different opinions, and people have see things differently. And so this is why this isn't done in a vacuum with just 2
Thank you,
people.
I appreciate
So,
it.
of course, you can have your opinion, our audience has their opinions, and that's why we're here. That's why these meetings are public.
Right.
This is a public process, and so don't apologize.
okay,
Just
so,
make that decision and get it.
so, here's where we're at. We have a motion and a second. Do we want to table that motion until we have a chance to talk to Joe
Yeah.
and get some input?
I would like to table.
Okay, we got a motion, make a motion to table.
I'll make. a
Oh, your thing didn't go any
You
further
did go
than a
through, so
second.
we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
We had a second, we're just gonna
did vote on it.
table the discussion until such time as we have a chance to talk with the borough manager. Okay,
Well, if you were at the ugly meetings that we had here,
They were.
yeah.
For what?
he was president of council too,
Mhm.
but our our planning commission wasn't in depth as this. So, and thank God for Larry Lennon, because he was part of that discussion at the time, so.
Okay. Okay, so,
I'll reach out to Joe, when he gets back in the office, but I'm sure he'll see your meeting minutes too, so, I'll talk to him about how
Oh,
we
here
want
the
to
meeting
move forward.
minutes.
Oh, he'll hear the meeting
Here the
minutes.
meeting
Yes,
minutes.
he'll hear them.
I have a question regarding section 2, which is the table.
Yes.
Permitted. Under mixed, it says mixed use residential commercial. How is that defined? Remind me.
So, mixed use is having more than one type of use in one building.
Okay,
So, we do have, I believe we kept it, let me just verify.
it
There,
permits,
I believe in the definition, it does say that residential needs to be on the upper
second floor,
stories,
okay.
and then it would be commercial or retail
Retail.
office on the first. I believe that's in your definition.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
You have some stuff in there, I mean, design guidelines too. about
Yeah.
that.
And then hotel motel is permitted in the, is that something that we,
We did not remove it. It was never really discussed. So, I mean, we're having more discussions, so if it's something that needs to be
Yeah.
talked about.
I mean, do we wanna have, I thought there was some brief discussion about hotel motel. In the
Why would that
businesses.
be a bad thing?
Because then they're gonna erect 110-story.
I would suggest, there is a, I would suggest perhaps thinking about making it conditional use if you're gonna leave it in. Because right now it's just permitted by right, so they
Right.
just build it, after getting their zoning permit. So you might wanna think about making that a conditional use and then putting some restrictions on like we have for some of the other things regarding size or number of rooms, so that you don't get, like a downtown Pittsburgh size hotel.
Yeah,
But, that's up
I
to
mean, do
you.
we
But
want to
you could
make
put
it
a Holiday
permitted?
Inn Express on
There's
each
a
piece
lot
of
of-
property.
Yeah, there's a lot of small boutique hotels, or, like you said, if the Rite Aid goes away, or this property down here, there is more room to put a larger size. But based on, the market probably is not gonna support a large hotel.
Right, there's
Because you
already-
don't have, there's already enough.
And you don't have the draw for the
Right,
area,
and there's already enough,
but right,
but you shouldn't zone based on that, because things
yeah,
can change.
because right across the bridge though, you have Comfort Inn,
Yeah.
and you have Holiday Inn Express,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
Yeah, it's probably not gonna happen, but you wanna make sure that your regulations are in place just in case something changes.
So Brandy, for conditional use, are the conditions defined
So for
Period.
all of these, you currently have conditions except for the ones that I added. So you currently have conditions for everything that's listed as conditional use in your current ordinance.
Okay, but for like if we were to have conditional use for 110 feet,
So that is a different, saying it's a conditional use is a little bit confusing because it's really not a use, it's a dimensional requirement. So it's different than the use. Because you're putting conditions on the size of the building, not on what's being done inside the building.
so how would that work?
It'd be the same process, they would just be heard about their 120 or 110 feet, rather than what type of use they're gonna put inside the building. No matter how high you make it, whatever you decide on, they have to follow the use table as well as the dimensional requirements. So it's two separate things, but it's the same process to get it approved.
Okay. So for hotel, motel, we would need to define those.
So, yeah, I think
Requirements,
you probably have a current definition, I'd have to look at that, but I don't think you have any conditions, for it as a conditional use, so we'd probably wanna add some if you change it. But I don't know that for sure, I'd have to look at your current
So
ordinance.
hotel definition is C, motel or hotel. An establishment that offers transient overnight lodging accommodations, including extended stays, to the general public, and that also may provide additional supporting services such as restaurants, meeting rooms, recreation facilities, and living quarters for a resident manager or proprietor.
And that's pretty standard definition.
They could put like the event center and just kill two birds with one stone.
Correct, just make it all in one, put a couple rooms in there.
So do we wanna make that a conditional rather than
With the hotel motel?
Yeah.
Randy, I have a question for
What
you.
are we changing the?
In the past, in the fire department,
No, we're just
One of-
changing
one of the
it here
things
on
was-
on the table.
But I thought she
for
said-
Grandview or for Grandview and the senior one, was your fire equipment has to be able to
Yep,
accommodate.
yep.
Can we lower it to 100 feet? Because the ladder
Yeah,
on our
105.
ladder truck
Yeah.
is only 100 feet.
So you might have to buy a new fire truck.
No, we not.
Well,
We had
So
that
that's a
deal
good
and it's
point.
good for.
That's a really good point. If
we had
do-
to.
If legally you would have to. If you're allowing buildings to be built that high, you have to have something that can protect it. So my recommendation is if we go forward making it a conditional use, it should probably be at 100 feet or whatever your ladder truck.
Because we had to buy the 100-foot ladder. The one was slightly shy of that. So when we bought this one at 1.2, $1.2 million ladder truck.
Yeah.
You know, more than that now.
Oh my gosh, they're probably double that now.
Yeah, well, we haven't paid it off. We still got
Yeah.
2 more years or 4 more years to pay it off, $75,000 a year.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just saying, in this overall scheme, that is part of it, is the fire protection. And
That's a very good point. So we should keep that in mind when you're setting your height.
Well,
Also too, Bruce, does that include, because most of the air conditioning and all that stuff's on
On the roof,
On the roof.
yeah,
Does that 110 feet include?
it should.
So as far as the conditional use for around town, it's 110 feet now. That's something that zoning, we should just go and just change right off the bat and lower that
yeah,
to whatever
I mean, you're
rate the state says.
45, 55, and 110.
And then we discuss whether or not we can do it here in our town, like in the Main Street.
yeah.
Well, that was a good workaround.
I'm not trying to
No,
prolong this,
but I
but
agree.
But
this
it's
is-
it's a very good point, because
Yep.
you don't want to put yourself in a position that you have to buy new equipment.
Because nobody else has a truck around here that can get that.
I think everybody's is 100-foot.
They're all,
Right,
they're all
so it's not-
pure.
Navy's the next biggest one, I think.
Yeah, they're all the same truck.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
How do they handle it, how do they handle the UPMC building in
They
Pittsburgh?
have, they
They,
have different types of, they go
They have-
up, they walk up the building.
they can do things differently, they'll,
Yeah.
They all
You have
do this.
shelter areas, you have,
Yeah.
but a town like this, you need to have a truck, because you're not gonna have all these other
yeah,
capabilities.
they've got a paid fire department. So do we wanna change
Just
that?
want the people on top of the burn.
You're
No,
above-
it's just that
you're
I
above
reckon,
100 feet.
talk, I very much agree with you. Talk to your fire department. I think that they
That's
should
a
have an
great-
input
yeah.
into the
Oh, yeah.
discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's who needs to talk.
Yeah. So do we wanna change the hotel motel from primary to, permitted to, conditional?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll make that change as well as the other ones that we discussed regarding the, additional criteria for specific uses, and then we can touch base with Joe about the height and see if the fire department has any other comments on that. So at this point, we have a little bit of work to do before we make this public. Okay,
I'm just bringing up stuff from the past that needs
Yep.
to
It's what
be,
again, that's why.
if
we
we're
have
changing,
this
let's
public
change.
meeting. Yeah.
for better.
When they say, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat.
Doomed to repeat it.
That's right.
Okay, anybody else have any other comments for Brandy?
All right, I'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank
you,
you,
Brandy.
everyone.
I appreciate it.
Sure. Hopefully some of your minds cleared out and smooth ride home. Really, I hope nobody got hurt in that.
Yeah, whatever.
See ya, guys. Bye, everyone.
See ya.
See you, Brent.
See ya.
Okay. We talked about Bob and Tree Pollinator Garden already. Under comprehensive plan project updates, Shade Tree Commission ordinance has been enacted. Need to establish a commission, commission members. Applications are being accepted through June 2nd, 2025. And there's a notice out on the Bridgeville website, and Joe's posted it. So
We don't know if anybody applied yet.
I don't know.
Last time, on Friday, you told us there have been one application so
I
far.
know somebody wants to apply, so I just want to figure out. Call them tonight.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else? Okay. Pat, you have any public comments?
Yes, thank you.
You gotta use your tile already.
Yes, I used that part, and this is slightly different. The butterfly garden is a wonderful thing. And I noticed that you approached it to try and put the infrastructure in place for the garden. I'm going to comment on what is not on the agenda. I understand things are happening in the background with the north end of our town. I would encourage the planning commission to please put on your agenda the north end of the town. To look to build the infrastructure required. I have somewhat, well,
What are you talking about when you say infrastructure?
infrastructure, the roadways to be able to carry traffic, specifically the widening of the railroad trestle, the widening of Washington Avenue from Port Authority Bus Garage, frankly, all the way to Painters Run Road.
Okay.
That's more than the north end, but
Well,
yeah,
all right.
that's
Thank you.
the breadth
Yes,
of what
yes,
needs to be for infrastructure.
We've heard.
Without the infrastructure, you're not going to attract what you're looking for.
Mhm.
And I noticed that you did not pass anything to require the butterflies to show up. What you did was brilliant. You created an environment that is going to attract butterflies, and hopefully will not attract mice and rats, because it won't. It's designed that way, right?
Just call it.
You can't fool with Mother Nature.
Correct, and you
But
can't.
the butterflies will show up. You
Hey,
build it,
And they will come. And I'm serious, I really, that resonates. Okay? No, that's what needs to happen, is you need to build the infrastructure, and the things you're looking for will come as well, whether they be butterflies or brew pubs, or all of those things will come if you build the infrastructure. The infrastructure is the roadway to carry the traffic. If you can't get to it and leave it, it's not going to come there. And this is where I have some just some insight. I was privileged enough yesterday to show 502 Washington Avenue. That's the former Cox Woodworking. I showed it to a person who was looking to put in an ethnic grocery store. I'm thinking that this would be something that would be would be positive, right?
Mm-hmm.
An ethnic grocery store.
Mhm.
I can tell you what he looked at, which was first the space, but more importantly, he looked at what was around it. Then he looked at the parking lot. Then he looked at the other things. Okay? We have not heard back from him. Now again, it's only one day. I'm leaving it open. I'm very hopeful. Okay? However, we are on our 6th call, according to my brother, for vape shops. 6 people have called for vape shops. Okay? And a person who was looking at a beauty salon, but they haven't called back. So we're up to 6 vape shop inquiries. Okay? What was the funniest is we have property also in other areas, and 2 of the people that called about 502 Washington Avenue also called about another location we have. Not recognizing Brownsville Road.
Oh, they want to do a big shop too there.
Yes. Very, very similar.
You see it every year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't put this out to you as, I'm not trying to give you the insight, because you're not getting it. Yes, there are 6 of them calling for that, and I've got one ethnic grocer that would be, I think, wonderful for our community.
But you don't think that about the vape shop, we hope. You don't think 6 vape
No,
shops would be wonderful?
Well, no.
Please tell me.
No.
Okay.
No,
Yeah,
see,
that's-
I'd rather have the ethnic grocer, even the beautician, but the ethnic grocer, the infrastructure's not there for him,
Right.
okay?
Yeah, people have to walk 2 blocks from parking to.
Yeah.
That's
That was part of the
all
problem.
of it.
That's part of the problem with Cox Woodworking.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I mean, he was, were any objections to him?
No.
He was a great tenant.
Yes.
Well, agreed, Bitsy?
I'm sorry.
Cox Woodworking, and the kind of business you wanted, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna say, well, that's,
Please.
yes, but it was
Okay.
not, he did not have any kind of serious marketing for something as unusual as what he had there. And I had a conversation with Dale about that not too long ago. And there's a whole world of stuff that you have to know and do to start a business and put it in a shop.
Look at the ethnic grocery store versus Wood, okay? So I went in there every time I needed a gift for whatever, birthdays, Christmas, whatever. I went up to Cox and I bought something small, all right? I don't need a lot of Wood things. If that ethnic grocery store was an Italian one, I'd be up there every freaking day.
It was funny, and I'll tell you this. I'll tell you that on this later when the Italian. Because suffice it, look, the people in this room are supportive, but the 8 of us are not enough. You've got to create the infrastructure, and that's what I'm asking you to please put on the agenda. Is the agenda plan for the infrastructure for our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bruce?
I make a motion we adjourn.
I'll second